Do you feel like you're bad at time management? Like the day just gets away from you, you never do what you think you're going to do, and you don't know how to even get back on track? You are not alone. We are all working on this, and I have 6 tips that will help you get back on track and become a manager of your time. I've said it before. We really don't do time management because nothing we do changes time. Time keeps marching on. It's an ever rolling stream. Nothing we do actually changes the pace of time, but what we do can change how much we get done in the time that we have. We can't change how much time we have, and we can't change the pace, but we can change how we use the time. So that means there's not really time management, there is only self-control. But before we can have self-control and choose to do the right thing, we have to know what the right things are, and we have to be ready to do them when the time comes. That's what planning is for. And today we are going to talk about 6 different kinds of time that we can plan for, 6 different ways that we can use time well. I'm going to share with you today a clip from a weekly member-only mentoring session. Every week inside Simply Convivial Continuing Education, we get together and talk about a topic or issue that matters in our lives as homemakers, so that we can organize our attitude and organize our life. And time management is really both of those all at once. So in this mentoring session, we're going to talk about 6 different ways to use time so that all of the rest of our time can be well used. We can get the most out of it, and best of all, be satisfied at the end of the day with what we chose to do. Let's dig in.
So I'm really excited about today's topic because this is basically going to be the outline for the new course that is coming at the end of August. And it's actually 6 times. When I wrote this, I put 5, but there are 6 modules. There are 6 different times that we are going to set up intentionally, deliberately, to practice both consistency in our work as well as rest, building in those times for rest and then taking it. And also, sometimes we can't rest well because we haven't worked well. Don't want to lose that. There we go. So I'm going to introduce this as like first ever, you heard it here first, what we are going to learn in the upcoming course, Restful Routines. Yes. Right, rest isn't just like for the leftovers or something you do after everything else is complete, because we all know it's never going to actually be complete. So we have to just set up those times where we use our time well. So it's restful routines, but really the point of the course will be time management. I mean, we have work the plan, which is about setting up a planner and making a plan, which kind of includes your time. You know, we do time budget and that sort of thing. And so whatever is already covered in something like work the plan or streamline your homemaking, or even sweep and smile and humble habits, is not going to be covered in restful routines, although there are definitely things that could have fit and things that work together really well. But I didn't want to, go over anything again, but rather expand and touch on things that we haven't touched on yet. There's quite a bit for time management and setting ourselves up for a good day, and then using that day well, that we haven't really touched on in any of the courses. So there was a gap and we're going to fill that gap this year. Restful Routines is the brand new upcoming course that will open the last week of August. And it'll be a 6-week course where every week we will learn about and set up and practice a new chunk of time in our day. And so through the 6-week course, we will be learning about time management, which is really about self-management in order to work well and rest well. And we will see how those two things really pair together and go hand in hand, and that you can't really have one without the other. So restful routines, we will focus on the rest angle and the routines angle. And the rest needs to be routine, that it needs to be regular and recurring. And you see there's going to be an R theme. And then the work itself is also good and something to put into a rhythm. And it sets us up for resting well, and the rest sets us up for working well. They go hand in hand. So there are 6 different times then that we are going to be putting into our day. And you know, if you've been around at all, that I do my best to not be prescriptive unless it really needs to be. You know, we focus on principles and applying things to our own life in a way that fits our own life right now, our own current situations, and not cutting and pasting someone else's schedule or routines or practices. So there are 6 different times that we are going to set up, but we're going to talk about them at the principle level and not at the, by the end of this course, we're all going to have a little cookie cutter schedule. It would be really easy. It would be really easy to set it up that way or to write about it that way, but that's not what we do here. We go back to principles and what's really important and what's foundational and universal, and then figure out what's that going to look like in our own life right now. Not our own ideal life, not the way we wish our life was, and then we're going to work towards getting it there, but what our life really is right now, and what can we do right now with the current situation to build in these times that we all need as people who've been given a calling to serve and to glorify God. That's a universal. And that means something in our days. And then we've also been called and created to rest, which comes down really to worshiping and enjoying God, not about just taking a break or giving into distraction. I think a lot of times we think that we are resting when we go into distraction mode, but then when we come out of that, we know that that's not really rest because we don't feel rested. So that's a clue that just giving in to distraction, that's what the world tells us is rest or relaxation or recreation, but it really isn't. It misses the mark because we know that because it doesn't prepare us to handle the rest of the day well. And if you've been around for a while, I'm part of Scholé Sisters, and Scholé is another word for rest, really. It's the Greek word that's actually in English becomes school, which seems antithetical to rest, but it's translated as leisure. So the Greek word scholé is leisure, and it does not mean distracted time or even time given to pleasure, but it means contemplation and connection with the bigger picture. We need rest that connects us to the bigger picture, that embraces our whole selves. And that bigger picture really is our spiritual lives and spiritual reality. It really comes down to worship. And I think that we can see that in the Westminster Catechism, the very first question and answer, which is, what is the chief end of man? Man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. And we know that in whatever we do, we can glorify God. Scripture tells us to do that. So that means that we can. Even though we're never going to do that perfectly, that's what we're trying to do. And so that is wrapped up in our work, that whatever we're doing in our day, our routines should be honoring and glorifying God. But then that enjoying God piece is scholé, it's true leisure, it's true rest, where rest is not a self-centered time or a distraction time. It is a time to set aside the work and the agenda and the stress in order to remember our place in the bigger picture and to remember what it's all about. That really, in the end, enjoying God is what we're going to be doing in heaven. And so we take time to practice that, and that puts us in perspective. So even the point of rest itself is not to work better. And that's another worldly approach, where the whole reason why you have a vacation or a break is so that you can come back to your work rested. So rest is only useful because it allows us to work better, and work is really the center thing. When it's kind of the other way around, and we see that in the creation narrative, where God works and then he rests. The rest is the fruit that comes after the work. So it is true that we know that it's not really rest when we don't re-enter our work rested. And yet that doesn't mean that the goal or the point or the reason for rest is so that we work better. It's flipped in the other way. And it is going to be rest that is ultimate. Heaven is pictured as the heavenly rest. It's the rest that Jesus has purchased for us. So rest is more of the ultimate point than work. But we're put here in this world and given callings and given jobs and given good works to walk in. And so we do need to work also. And we have both of them. Yes, you work and then you can rest in your work. We can step into that and experience in a small way, because we were created in God's image. We kind of mirror back that, where God created the world and then rested. And yet we're fallen, we're sinful. We can't mimic that perfectly or completely or correctly all the time, or anytime it even feels like we do it a little bit, it's incomplete. And then rest is this hugely meaningful and significant concept throughout Scripture, Old and New Testaments. And it's easy to miss sometimes because maybe we just get distracted by the ceremonial law aspect with the Sabbath in the Old Testament, but we can see it as significantly in the shift in the New Testament, in the New Covenant, in the church, to the day of rest being the first day rather than the seventh day. So we have the days of creation, God works, and then he rests. And then in the new covenant, that's flipped, and we have a day of worship, and we rest and we worship first and then work, because the rest has been purchased. So we don't earn our rest. We aren't getting rest because we deserve it or have earned it or have done all the right things to get it. Jesus did that and then gives it to us. And so we rest and worship. And then we live out in light of that rest and worship. And we take that out with us through the rest of the week. So that's the big picture and the principles that we're going to be meditating on and drawing out and applying to our lives and our thinking as we work through some very practical 6 times that we build into our day. So let's dig into those. We're going to set up these times. A start time. And yeah, it's like getting up in the morning. There is this, there's theology and philosophy and big ideas that do inform our practices and that we do need to think about and work out in our lives. But then there also are those nitty gritties and they are connected. And so they do go together. There's a start time to get up in the morning. We're going to pick a time to get up in the morning. And then recharge time, a stop time. So that goes along with that start time. If you have a start time, you need a stop time, a reset time, a sprint time, and a rest time. So I couldn't make them all the same letter, so they're alternating S's and R's. So starting is about, we're going to talk about being realistic and not trying to live out our ideal, but being realistic with that start time and being consistent and working on self-control there with our start time. Recharge time is going to be time to unplug, to put the phone away. When in your day will you build in the habit of unplugging from the technology, from screens, so that you can connect to the actual present reality around you? And that you could be doing, that can be worked out in all kinds of different ways. That could be choosing to put away your phone after dinner for the evening, or it could mean during your school hours if you're homeschooling, or it could mean, there are all kinds of places where you could implement that in your life. And I'm not going to be prescribing, like, do this, but we're going to be talking about these ideas where we should have some time where we are not in front of screens in the day. I was like, yeah, we know that. And so we're going to figure out small steps and small ways that we can do that. Then a stop time, actually going to bed at a reasonable hour. And I know just the draw and the temptation to stay up late because it's quiet is real. But we need to think about the whole picture and not just that in the moment self that wants to indulge in late night time, but to think about the whole picture and what does that mean for the day tomorrow? What are you really using that time for? And is that the best use of your time? What is a reasonable bedtime? And can we make that a habit? So those are the things that we're going to talk about for a stop time. And with start and stop times, we're not going to try to turn night owls into morning people. There's going to be none of that. We're all going to choose reasonable expectations. There are principles that apply whether you're a morning person or a night person, and that's the level at which we're going to be talking about as we each make our own personal applications of these things. Then we're going to have a reset time, and this is not like a scheduled block on your calendar, but reset. This is like ways that we can push the reset buttons on our attitudes. So they are times. It does take time, but we're talking like 30 seconds, 2 minutes, under 5 minutes, different little things where we can hit pause and hit that reset button and take that time. 30 seconds is well worth it to de-escalate our own emotions and our own responses to other people. So we're going to work out some 30-second, 2-minute, 5-minute resets that we can build in. And so those are strategies, those are times that we can reach for that are realistic and workable in real life to hit the reset on our attitudes and our responses throughout the day. And then sprint time is work time. So that's taking care of business and actually paying attention to what we need to be doing and doing it without getting distracted. So we're sprinting because we're paying attention to the work that needs to be done and we're doing that. Our focus is where it ought to be and we aren't scattered. So it's sprint as opposed to scattershot. And we are going to set aside time or a to-do list. We're going to have time every day to sprint, to pay attention to the work at hand and do it without distraction. And yes, the children are still around and the phone might still ring. Like there are external distractions that might still, interruptions. And it's not like we are worried about containing those as much as we are breaking the habit of being scattered in our own internal attention and letting ourselves get started here. And before we start getting momentum and making progress, we like switch and go do something else over here. And we end up feeling overwhelmed and kind of being able to think that, oh, I've been so busy without getting anything done, when that's really just this internal issue of attention. So sprint time is going to be about attention. And then rest. And so rest is the final time that we are going to set up. And we're going to talk there about actual Sabbath scale rest. And that's going to boil down to corporate worship on Sunday morning being the most essential piece. And we like to think that the rest that we need is individual and like quiet time, devotion time, this ideal candlelit, peaceful, perfectly alone time. When what the Bible says that we need is corporate worship. So even if you're an introvert, the rest time that we need, even as introverts, is corporate with the body and worship. And we need to go with that because the one who created us knows better than we do what we need. So we're going to make sure that we have that piece in place, as well as time to read our Bibles and pray daily. So there's a weekly piece, which can't be neglected. And then there is the regular habits of prayer and Bible reading. So that's actual rest. So I'm so excited. I think we're going to have some great conversations and insights. And I think applying these principles and paying attention to them in our days is going to make a big difference, because it feels like, we just need to put together the perfect schedule where this follows this follows this. And that's what we tend to think of or go to for answers about routines or time management, when it's really about our attention and our goals and what really that big picture is. And that's what we're going to focus on in restful routines.
So are you on board? Do you want to set up these 6 times in your own life so that you can end the day satisfied with the way that you spent the time you were given, so that you can escape the boom and bust cycle, so that you can end the frustration of days that don't go the way we wanted them to go, and also the overwhelm that comes from having too much on our plate while we are simultaneously distracted, scattered, and unfocused. If you want to dig into time management that really boils down to self-control, if you want to organize your attitude so you can organize your life, then I have a special announcement you will love. In August 28th, I am opening a brand new course inside Simply Convivial Continuing Education. It's called Restful Routines, and it is going to be our time management course inside Continuing Education. We're going to spend 1 week building each of these kind of times into our day, and we're going to practice them together in community. We're going to come together at the end of the week and report about how it went and learn to iterate. To iterate means to keep learning and adjusting and continuing to learn and grow. Too often we let perfectionism keep us from even starting. Perfectionism tells us that we have to have it all figured out before we begin, that we have to have the plan, the system, and we have to know where it's going to take us in the end. That's a recipe for never getting started. Instead, we can take one small step in the direction we know we need to go. Then we can look back, learn from our mistakes, and make smart changes so that next time we can do better. And that's how we get farther and make true progress while maintaining a cheerful attitude, while not getting bogged down in stress or overwhelm or frustration. So if that's the approach to time management and self-control that you would like, then enroll in Simply Convivial Continuing Education. This brand new course is included with everything else inside. And for the first 6 weeks that we are having this course available, there is going to be extra support, extra accountability, extra encouragement, extra cheerleading, keeping you on the course, applying the material, and learning for yourself how to make these changes in your own life, in your own way. If that sounds like something you need, then go to simplyconvivial.com and click the green enroll button up in the corner. You can enroll for 1 month, 3 months, a year, whatever time you think you need to commit to making these changes in your life that will have lasting effect in your life. We would love to have you. Go to simplyconvivial.com and click the green enroll button today. and join us for Restful Routines, which begins August 28th.